The following program is made possible with support from the Alfred P. Sloan Foundation.
Welcome to Science Goes to the Movies, a look at the stories of science and how they change our culture. I'm Heather Berlin.
And I'm Faith Salie. We're going to be reviewing current movies, TV shows, and sometimes checking out a blast from the past, but from the scientific point of view. We've had a great time talking about outer space and speculative science, but today we're going to start with a subject that's very down to earth: cars.
Specifically, the car engine. In the newest edition of George Miller's Mad Max franchise, Mad Max Fury Road, production designer Colin Gibson spent a decade collecting and creating 88 separate vehicles that make up this installment of the Mad Max universe.
What's particularly exciting about these cars is each and every one of them works and was designed by Gibson to be functional in the desert environment of Mad Max. We're joined today by Art Vatsky, automotive engineer and CEO of Future Fuels Technology, who is going to give us some insight on just how that could be done. Now, Art, as a New Yorker, a car to me is, something I hail or, ride uptown, downtown, and I don't give much thought to the idea of what makes a car go. So what happens in a combustion engine?
Exactly that. Within the engine, however many cylinders you have places where combustion explosions take place.
So in any car that's going, there are tiny little explosions happening all the time to make it run?
Thousands and thousands. A car going down the road, a four-cylinder engine car, with an engine running at 2,000 RPM,
what does that mean,
2,000 revolutions per minute for the crankshaft that's connected to the wheels. So it takes 2 revolutions to do a full cycle on a 4-cycle engine. Only one of those cycles is a power cycle, the third one, power. And it's every 2 revolutions. So in an engine going 2,000 RPM, which is a common speed for driving around in New York, each cylinder has 1,000 explosions.
Well, now, I have a V6 car, so what does that mean? Is that even extra special? A V6 engine.
A V6 engine.
I don't know what that meant. It sounded good and I got it.
You just get, at 2,000 RPM, you get 1,000 explosions in each cylinder. You have 6, so there's 6,000 explosions, all controlled by the spark plug. So it's 1,000 explosions. That means the valves work, the piston works, the spark plug knows where everything is, and it fires a short little burst. You have burning, then that exhaust goes out the exhaust valves, and it starts all over again.
Okay.
1,000 times a minute.
Just from what you just said, I have now so much appreciation and respect for cars and you. Wow. And things don't blow up, and it's not too noisy to drive.
Well, we've been working on this 100 years, so we've got it down pretty good.
In the 1980s, Mad Max, the machines, the cars, had airplane motors attached to diesel rigs. So could that kind of a Frankenstein car, I mean, with those kind of fuel requirements, ever really run?
Yes, we can. All we want to do with an engine is have a shaft that spins, and then we hook things onto it. Vacuum cleaners, propellers, anything. We just, the output of an engine is torque and speed of turning. That's all we get out of an engine. We get a shaft that is spinning, that's RPM, that's revolutions per minute, and torque.
What is torque?
Torque is twist.
But is that related to the amount of power that it needs?
Absolutely. RPM times torque divided by a constant is horsepower.
The cars in Mad Max Fury Road are practically characters unto themselves. And in fact, Tom Hardy's Mad Max is driving the same 1974 XB Ford Falcon Coupe that Mel Gibson's Mad Max first drove back in 1979. And for people who love cars, that matters.
Art, why do you love cars so much?
Oh, gee, that's a biggie. cars represent freedom. Cars represent individual freedom. When cars first became available and affordable, there were no roads between cities. There were only sea lanes or river routes and the railroad. All of those are group travel. An automobile is personal, private travel. And when you couple that with the higher speeds, with the ability to, you can decide who to take with you, and the
ability to escape, too.
The ability to escape. You can't stay in the house all the time. And we do love them. And my students, I teach at Bronx Community College. My students they come into classroom in love with cars.
A lot of cars have part of their engine sticking out of the hood. So is there actually like a mechanical use for that, or is it just to make the car look cool?
I'll put your mind at ease.
Okay, please do.
Okay.
This is a burning question.
Okay, we have this. What you see sticking out of the hood of some of those cars are superchargers. Superchargers are driven by that shaft that comes out of the engine. A little amount of power is taken from the rear wheels or front wheels, whatever's driven, and that power is used to pump more air, to force more air into the combustion chamber. When you pump more air in, you can pump more fuel in, you get more heat, higher temperatures, higher power.
So if a supercharger adds air, what does a turbocharger do?
Adds air, but it...
Okay.
But even more than the supercharger.
Okay, no, I'll explain. A turbocharger, instead of taking the power off the shaft, it takes it off the waste gas coming out of the exhaust of the engine. Now, you can get similar air forced into the cylinders and get more power. The difference is this. You ever hear of the phrase turbo lag?
No.
No. Turbo lag. Turbo lag is when you're driving along and you want to accelerate and you have a turbocharger. The turbocharger turns at over 100,000 RPM. Okay? It's driven by the exhaust gas. So you press on the gas and it takes a couple of seconds for the turbocharger to ramp up to speed where it's actually pumping air. Whereas the supercharger, as soon as you hit the button, you get the big bang.
There's a scene in the movie where the character Nux, played by Nicholas Hoult, is spitting fuel back into the engine via that thing. So why do that?
I've thought about whether it was fuel or water, because sometimes water is used to cool the process so you don't overheat the engine, called water injection. But I think he's spitting in fuel, and that's a distortion of what is happening. He is only spitting fuel in one of the intake pipes. There he is. Yeah. Okay, and he gets this burst of extra power. Not going to happen. It was just a theatrical game. And then, oh, by the way, I noticed something about Nux. On his chest, he has a cross-sectional view of a V8 engine.
Oh. That's what's on him?
That's what's on him.
That character, Nux, drives a 1933 Chevrolet 5-window coupe that has a nitrous oxide tank.
Oh, yes.
And when I hear nitrous oxide, I think dentist.
Yes.
Right? That's like the laughing gas.
Yes.
How could nitrous oxide make a car go faster?
Oh, here we go again. Okay, this is easy. Nitrous oxide, N2O. It's 2 nitrogen, 1 oxygen. It's not that stable a chemical. When you inject it into an engine, the temperature in there is hot enough to dissociate the oxygen from the nitrogen. But you get more oxygen in the combustion chamber, you can put in more fuel, you get more power. We just want more power.
So does that mean that the car as we know it now can be powered by anything that burns?
Anything that burns, no. You can't burn wood and get it to go, at least not internal combustion engine. But you don't need petroleum. If you want to burn alcohol, you can burn alcohol. Petroleum includes natural gas, propane, diesel fuel, gasoline. Those you could go in gas stations to buy in most places in the country. Okay, so we're running on fossil fuel. Fossil fuel is actually dead bodies from prehistoric times, dead plants, dead animals that have been compressed over millions of years and come to be known as petroleum.
I think people who don't believe in evolution shouldn't be allowed to buy gas, now that I've heard you put it that way. What do you think?
It could be.
That could solve our oil crisis. You say we can't burn wood to make a car go. Is that because it doesn't get hot enough?
Right.
Okay.
Also, how are you going to get in and out? You got to...
How does heat factor in? I mean, if a combustion engine runs on explosions, where does the heat factor in?
Okay, good question. You need the temperature and you need the heat. Temperature is the quality of the heat. 100 degrees, 200 degrees, 300 degrees. The hotter it's higher quality heat. You can get more work out of it. Okay. What's the other one?
Heat. Heat is energy.
Heat is the quantity. It's the quantity of heat. A cup of soup is hot.
A pool of soup.
A pool of
really
soup.
hot.
They get, this is okay. This has a lot more heat. It's the quantity. Heat is the quantity. Temperature is the quality.
Right. So think about if you're, like you said, like if you're holding a match, you're not going to feel an overwhelming bit of heat. But if you're standing by a campfire that's burning at the same temperature as the match did, you're going to feel the heat radiating off of it. Like yeah.
And petroleum, especially gasoline and diesel fuel, wonderfully dense fuels with a lot of heat in every gallon. That's why you can drive. I made this example. If you have a car that goes 30 miles on a gallon of fuel, you could put 10 gallons in it, which only weighs about 70 pounds. I'm sorry, I'm choosing numbers. 70 pounds. You put 70 pounds.
Why are you sorry you're choosing numbers?
Because of units, it's an issue.
Oh, it's okay. So it's not an issue for us.
Okay.
I'm a scientist. I
So
work
you're
with
all
numbers
right.
all the time.
But you would want me to tell you metric.
Is gasoline just a more powerful fuel in terms of acceleration and such?
In terms of acceleration, no, there's a lot more that has to be around that question. Gasoline is a powerful, dense fuel. It's a dense fuel. It carries a lot of heat in each gallon. Remember, we talked about heat being the quantity of heat. So that's why you could, I'll give you this example. Gasoline, it takes 3 gallons of gas to go 100 miles in my gasoline car. My electric car, that weighs 21 pounds. My electric car, if I fill it up fully charged, it's got a battery, hold electricity. The battery weighs 600 pounds.
Oh.
It weighs 600 pounds.
That doesn't seem as efficient, doesn't it?
Well,
in a weird way.
I have to. Well, here's
you need more energy to move it, right?
Yes, but you don't have an engine. You don't have an emissions group. You don't have a water pump. You don't have a air intake. You don't have an exhaust system.
You don't have guilt.
You don't have guilt.
That's
Not
very
carrying
heavy.
that around.
I've never gotten rid of that. Okay, so a lot of the weight of that battery is offset by the fact that there's no engine in the car, no after treatment in the car, no transmission in the car. Okay, so the car is a few hundred pounds heavier than the.
So what needs to change about the electric motor to make it
The
equal
motor
or better?
The motor is different. The motor is very simple. Okay, it's really 2 basic parts: a rotor that spins, and a stator that makes it spin because of the variation of magnetic field. That's what it does. Instead of using a power stroke, it changes the magnetic field, and that makes the rotor turn, and the rotor is connected to the shaft.
What parts of the electric car are the same as in a combustion engine?
What part is the same?
What parts of the electric car?
Differential.
The differential?
Yeah.
I don't know that except
Okay,
from
well,
calculus. More basic, like an electric car is like a combustion car. It looks the same to me.
It is.
'Cause I'm not.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The motor replaces the engine,
Okay.
and the battery replaces the fuel tank. But our knowledge of electric technology means to get the energy of 3 gallons of fuel, we have to have 600 pounds of lithium-ion batteries.
Do you think someday, you remember when TVs were like the back of them? Do you think
Yeah.
someday it'll be a tiny battery like this running a car?
No.
No?
No, not like this.
No? Like this? What do you think?
I'd be, if it came down, if it went from 600 pounds to 300 pounds and the same amount of energy, I think that would be great. Right now, the cost of lithium-ion batteries is dropping. So that Tesla's coming out with another car that's supposed to be priced at like $35,000 to $40,000, and I could live with that.
We just got a electric lawnmower, which is really cool. So we
Okay.
charge it in the garage.
And then you cut down all that grass that's helping to eat up this CO2, right?
But it's quiet. It's
Art-
quiet.
Yeah.
Well, with this movie, the sound was just a massive part of the stimuli, right? I mean, it was all the sound of Mad Max was all. What do you?
My guts were, the movie ended, I felt like I had a workout on my stomach.
Right, because the constant sounds of the combustion engines now, which I now know are thousands and millions of explosions over and over, right?
Yes.
First of all, Art, why do engines make these sounds? And second of all, how can you stand it?
Well, once again, no, the sounds come from basically the sound comes from the explosions, okay? The explosion rock the engine, okay? Things rattle, but you
But
have
not in your grandfather's Cadillac, right?
Sure.
Smooth, but we don't hear it.
you don't hear it because it's a V8 and the interval between each explosion has been reduced. I mean, a four-cylinder is wider time between each one. Smack, smack, smack.
Is that why the V6 engine or the V8, that's why it's a smoother ride as well?
That's why.
Because there's less space between the...
That's right. That's right. For the number of turns, instead of 4 big pushes, there's 8 smaller pushes, and for the same power.
And do you like the sound of a car revving? I mean, does that?
Yes, I do.
Why?
Yes, I do. We do.
Why?
Well, as an engineer, it tells me everything is running right or everything is running wrong.
And is louder better for your ears?
No.
Purr? You like a nice...
I like a purr with a little rough end. A little on a rough.
Wait,
Is this
getting to
your
the-
Match.com posting?
I know, I was thinking there's a lot of double entendres here. But it leads me to this question of with the wave of electric cars, do you think that, and they're silent, it's this odd thing, especially when there's a hybrid, I notice, when you stop at a light and then there's silence. So do you think we'll miss the loud sounds of these engines?
Yeah, I've been driving an electric car for over a year, and the thing that it looks like other cars of the same model, and that's what strikes everybody, how quiet it is. I have to be careful that I don't back over somebody because they don't hear it coming. It doesn't have that beep, beep, beep of the trucks, and I can see where it's less enthralling, less interesting to a young male or female. The sound is, you teach technicians, sound is a way to begin to analyze what's going on with the engine.
So it's kind of ironic that in the whole world of Mad Max, they're searching for this fuel called gasoline, which is a fossil fuel that's probably the very thing that turned their world into a wasteland. So you specialize in fuel, and I'm wondering what your thoughts are about this.
Okay, you got me now.
Okay.
My career overlaps the Clean Air Act from EPA, started in 1970. Okay, at that time, we were concerned about reducing NOx, reducing hydrocarbons, and reducing CO, carbon monoxide. Okay, we weren't concerned about CO2. If you have clean, you can burn as much fuel as you want. That was our attitude. Now, they're saying, no, you can't burn as much fuel as you want because you're going to fill the atmosphere with CO2. So then you're saying, well, so I'll go from a full gasoline vehicle or diesel fuel to a hybrid, which is progress. But we're so full of CO2 in the atmosphere now that didn't exist up there before, that even that is not enough. An electric car or a fuel cell car gets you motion without any CO2 and, of course, without any emissions, because you're not burning anything. And electricity, which I was not a big fan of previously, I try to avoid it as a mechanical engineer. I like things that spin and turn and burn and all of that. But you can't knock its benefit of if you can source it right, you don't put that CO2 in the air, and you can still live the lifestyle we're used to living.
I've heard the phrase that electricity is a universal energy carrier. So what does that mean?
Oh, it means what we've been alluding to here. It means that when the electric current comes to you, you don't care whether it came from burning coal or oil or natural gas or wind or solar or tidal. You don't care. All of those systems, all of those sources can be turned into electricity. So that's why it's the universal.
Do you think of yourself as a scientist? Because so much of what you do involves science.
Well, we engineers, that's our purpose, is to use what the scientists have to make things that people can use. Okay? I guess it turns out a different, not quite the same skill set. The scientists are in the lab working on the macro scale, okay, and we're in the next stage, which is, okay, the scientists thought this up. How can we get this on a car or on a dishwasher or on a refrigerator?
Executing.
Execute.
It's right. It's a practical application of the science, and it's sort of where where the rubber meets the road.
Nice.
Yeah, I had to.
When you were watching Mad Max, were there any scenes or that you saw where you were just like, no way, that couldn't happen?
Yeah, I was offended that the technicians, whether the real ones or the ones that were, in character, they weren't shown at all. The cars were there, but the technicians were invisible, except for like a half a second. And that was, I kind of, as a guy who does that, who fixes cars, when he has to, I thought that was not everyone was taking for granted. All those cars would work.
The cars get all the glory, and
yeah,
the guys behind the scenes.
Those are really fantastic machines. They were overpowered. And here's a key point. They didn't have to make emissions.
Ah, true.
Okay, that would, they didn't have to make emissions. There had no catalytic converters. There had no recirculation. They were really running in the 1950s, 1960s prior field where make it big.
Anything goes.
Yeah.
When you watched this movie, was it full of all sorts of, I think they call them Easter eggs in the film industry, like little hidden gems for the close watcher. Did you delight in watching this movie? Did you see all sorts of things?
I delighted in watching the movie, yes.
Why?
Why? Because I wanted to see what would happen next. But there's as I watched it, and I watched it again, the theme and the objective of the film changed for me. You want to talk about that now?
Yeah.
Go for it.
Okay. It's not about a shortage of petroleum. The way I see it, Furiosa and the War Rig were going on a shopping trip to the mall. That's Gastown. They weren't worried about it. They didn't have to fight anyone. They just didn't want to have any problems on the way. So it was really, if I want gas, I go to Gastown. If I want bullets, I go to a bullet somewhere else. But they had made peace with the environment they were in. And the environment they're in obviously exists now, because we saw it. And there might be more of it come the future.
What kind of engine would be best for our future?
I think
A Flintstone car. That's
No.
what I'm gonna say.
it could be. Well, you know, you don't need. Why do we
You
have?
lose weight, you start your car. It's great.
Why do we have? I mean, everyone thinks, of course, you get a four-seat car. We all buy 4,000-pound cars to carry a 150-pound person. Okay, would we go to motorcycles? Would we go to electric motorcycles? Would we go? I think we'd be better off with electric for those reasons. But you hear my heart say, I want to hear the sound. And
You could put a little recorder in the car that just makes that sound when you press a button.
yeah,
Art, what are you going to drive home today?
New York City Transit.
There you go. See, in your own way, you're helping change the world, make it a better place.
Yes. Well, actually, not actually.
Art, thank you so much
Okay.
for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thanks.
This has been a trip.
Don't forget to check us out on the web at www.cuny.tv under the Science tab, where you'll find past shows, additional content, and a link to our app.